Hi Park family, it's David. Okay, I had a thought come to me earlier today and I wanted to get it on record here, and it had to do with I think last time I got some video in front of this tree and these trees behind me. I talked about putting red lights and red trains in David's Park. And I was also thinking, a thought came to me today about the importance of teaching one another to read better than we do. It's one thing to to have red trains and red lights in David's Park, but it's another thing to, teach and train one another in how to read our enchantment and our amusement and our haunts and our thrills and the work that we do with our dead. All of these things are kind of things that have to do with our belief and our faith, and in different ways that we can channel our faith and our belief in our spirit, in our spiritual and temporal development. And so we need to, I was thinking in David's Park, we got to come up with some ways in our tales and in our fibs and in our fables to do. And by the way, all of our fibs and fables and all of our tales are all done in spirit and in truth in David's Park. And so we do it with the help of our dead and with the help of the Holy Ghost and with the help of the Park Ghost. And we do everything that we do in spirit and in truth for defensive purposes. And I'll talk about that more in future videos. But everything that we do in David's Park is not only for defensive purposes, but not only defensive purposes for the park, defensive purposes for God's family, for our friends, for our neighbor, for America, and for the dead. And so teaching and training one another on how much all of our amusement and entertainment and enchantment and our haunts and our thrills in David's Park are things that we read into. And so we can do better when we go about creating our park tales and so on and so forth in our park, to foster better reading that encourages better, more appropriate, more responsible spiritual and temporal development. And I want our audience, our park family and friends out there that may be watching our videos or checking me out on Twitter or on YouTube or on social media. Want to encourage you also to just remember that David's Park, it's a work in progress, and there's just so much in life that's inexpressibly, deep, that we can't necessarily solve or fix, that God just, has made life the way that it is. But where we can do things to make life better, that's where we work towards things in our park. And so we can teach and train one another to be more responsible with our reading and the way that we teach and train one another to read things. And again, David's Park is a work in progress, and so we want our park family and friends to and our audiences to know that we don't have a perfect park here with us. We have to build it, and we have to work on it, and it takes a lifetime to perfect, and it takes almost all of our mental and spiritual and physical capacity and all of our gifts, skills, and talents, and the very best of our mental and spiritual exertions. And so anyhow, this is a longer video, but I just wanted to get some of those thoughts on record so that I could expand upon some of those things on later videos. So anyhow, with that, I just wanted to get that on record, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, good night. Hi, Park family. It's David again. Okay, and then I have one more thought that I wanted to get on record here, and this thought just has to do with these lights. Pretty soon these lights and decorations are going to come down in the city of Chino, and they're going to, begin to prepare for other months and seasons of the year. And so in like manner, we do similar types of things in David's Park. And we have the dead with us always in David's Park. And so as we court the dead and as we begin to slow down from the rush and the hustle and bustle of ordinary life, the dead will make themselves known to us. They'll manifest themselves to us if we seek them out. And the dead just basically, can teach us and train us on how to do better things, both in David's Park and in this world in which we live here in America. And so, in David's Park, we have the dead with us all the time. And so I've got the dead's house that I created. I created some artwork for it. We've always got the dead with us in the park, and they kind of are always hanging out in the dead house. But I don't have all the decorations and all the things that we could put into the dead house. We just I have one ghost sitting on top of the dead house, or you could call it a haunted mansion. I call it the dead house for now until I come up with a better name for it. And what we do with that is, we keep working towards that. We keep, asking questions, contemplate more and more on our dead, try to live our lives with the end in mind so that, we learn to love God with all of our heart, might, mind, and strength. And then in addition to that, love our family, our friends, our neighbor, America, and the dead as we love ourselves. And as we perfect that within ourselves, won't solve all the problems in life, but it'll make for better reading in the park, give us better spiritual food for helping us nourish our hearts and souls and help us along in life's lonely, very lonely journey. So anyhow, just want to get those thoughts on record here, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, good night. Hi, Park family. It's David again. Okay, I have one other thing I wanted to get down on record tonight, and this has to do with the question of what is David's doctrine. And the answer to that question is that David's doctrine is kind of like law, right? Like David's doctrine is like creating law for David's Park. And when we create law in David's Park, we're creating things that kind of just remain eternal. And so we really have to, we really want to take our time to make sure that we create good, clean, smart, clever, and appropriate law and doctrine in David's Park. And it just takes tons of time because we have to receive the inspiration, we have to receive the revelation, and then we have to interpret it. We have to interpret that, and then we have to put it into language. And to do those types of things, it'd be really nice to have discussion groups and opportunities where we can have conversation back and forth and questioning back and forth and doing different things in David's Park in order to refine and perfect our doctrine. But David's doctrine is basically just the doctrine that defines David's Park, and it defines our tales, it defines our enchantment, and it defines our magic and our illusionment. It defines our warfare with the devil and the devil's family of devils. It defines right from wrong, good from evil. It sets the tone for the conscience in David's Park. And so that's basically David's doctrine. And David's doctrine is unique to David and the Kuhns and David's Park and David's Park family and friends. It's unique from Disney doctrine. It's unique from the doctrines that we have in government. Some doctrines that we have in government, like for example, David's doctrine is unique from Paul's doctrine. Paul's doctrine, is debatably the doctrine under which we've been bound in America for who knows how long, longer in my lifetime. But I believe Paul's doctrine's been the only doctrine in the American government by which I've been bound. So David's doctrine's a little bit unique, and it applies to David's Park. And so again, it's different than Magic Mountain doctrine. It's different than Knott's Berry Farm doctrine. It's different than Golfland's doctrine or Scandia's doctrine, or it's different from Disney's doctrine. It's different from Paul's doctrine. And so it's just absolutely unique. And it's kind of got its, the secret sauce is in the Kuhn family. And so, we kind of have to just kind of work with what God's given us in that regard, and then develop our doctrine more and more as the days, months, and years go by. And so our desire is that our doctrine remains pure, that it sticks to the tradition and faith of our family and of our fathers. And we just want it to be top notch. We want it to be clean and clever and perfectly and wonderfully wicked in all of the right ways. And so to do that, it just takes it'll take everything that we have in our lifetime to get it to be what we'd like it to be. And we'll work on it. It won't remove hell on earth, but it will give us the opportunity to, if we work really hard, to make our own little bit of heaven out of what we have and what we've always had, which is hell on earth. And so the hell on earth that we have had and that we always will have isn't necessarily going to change unless you look at the man in the mirror yourself and make the changes in your own life to make yourself a better person. But in David's Park, we'll work on it to make it the best that we can make it. And so anyhow, just wanted to get those thoughts on record here tonight, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, good night. Hi, Park family, it's David. I don't know if you can see that. This is a palm reading studio. That's an example of the devil's doctrine. Or maybe some of the devils and maybe the devil and the devil's family of devils glean inspiration from Paul's doctrine. I don't know. That would be another question we could ask ourselves. What does David know in David's Park? And the answer to that would be David doesn't know. David doesn't know anything. David never will know anything. And David's okay not knowing anything. But when it comes to the doctrine of Paul, and when it comes to palm reading and Ouija boards and all those other kinds of things that the devil and the devil's family of devils do, those aren't the Messiah's doctrines. And so there's a fine line and a fine difference between David's doctrine and the Messiah's doctrine and the devil's doctrine and the devil's family of devils doctrine. And we don't want to get caught up in all of the evil and wickedness of the devil's doctrines, because they only cause more and more wickedness. And if it's not perfect wickedness, and if it's not perfectly wonderful warfare, the Messiah wouldn't approve of it. So we want to make sure we do what's right always. So anyhow, I just want to get some of those thoughts on record here, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, good night.